Hey there, Paradigm Bryan coming to you from HiFi Buys in Atlanta. Actually, I'm just Bryan, but a lot of the guys here think I work for Paradigm, and that's because, well, I own a pair and I love them, and I'm part of the reason we brought them into the store. So today we're here to talk about these specific speakers. This is the entry level into the Persona lineup, and that is the Persona B or Persona Bookshelf. These speakers aren't exactly brand new. They're about 8 years old now, but they are still on the cutting edge of speaker technology and design, and they still have class-leading performance. The music that comes out of these things will blow you away. First, let's talk a little bit about the history of Paradigm and where the Personas came from, and then we'll jump into some more specifics about the Persona line and even more specifics about the Persona Bs. This thing is packed with tech, really has some special features and a fantastic sound that you're really going to want to hear. So let's dig into what makes them so cool. Paradigm is a Canadian company that was founded in 1982. Somewhere along the line, they got a large grant from the Canadian government to study sound. And with that, they built a large anechoic chamber. And this is the kind of facility that a lot of speaker manufacturers don't have access to. And what this allowed Paradigm to do was to design and build all of their own drivers, with the exception of the ones in this speaker, and we'll talk about that later. Paradigm was always known for their high-value speakers. They were cost-effective but gave you great performance. And it wasn't until the introduction of the Persona line that Paradigm stepped into that upper echelon of hi-fi speakers. So what makes the Persona line special? Well, there's a lot of tech packed into these speakers. Everything from the PPA phase lenses, to the cabinet construction, to the surrounds, and to the speaker material. There is a lot packed into these speakers. But first off, let's talk about these PPA phase lenses here. They look super cool and very architectural, but they go well beyond that in what they do. They are very specifically designed to block out of phase information that is coming off of the driver. You may be familiar with speakers that use a phase plug, and that's the little rocket nose cone kind of thing you see sticking out of the middle of some woofers. And that device is meant to help fix some of the phase issues that happen as the speaker's producing sound. The problem with that is that it really only affects the center of the speaker, leaving the outer edge of the speaker and the surround to do whatever they're going to do and throw out of phase information at you. Paradigm designed these phase lenses to cover the whole speaker, and you can see that the pattern of the holes changes, and they're very specifically designed to fix some of the phase anomalies across the whole speaker surface. And the tweeter lens actually fixes phase and gives you better off-axis frequency response. So what that means is, A, you're going to get a little bit wider of a sweet spot. You don't have to be stuck right in the middle, and if you're listening with a friend, you both get great sound. And as you're getting up and walking across the room to maybe change the record or grab a drink, the sound doesn't fall away as you get out of the center of the speakers. Another thing that Paradigm did in the making of the Personas was really step up their game in the cabinet making. And they use a big customized press to laminate 7 layers of wood composite combined with layers of viscoelastic dampening material. So you'll notice that these have a parabolic shape to them, as well as the top and bottom not being flat, they're angled. This is meant to stop standing waves in the speakers so that really all you're hearing is the driver, so that really makes these some pretty inert cabinets. Another bit of cool tech that Paradigm came up with for the Persona line is what they call their ART, or Active Ridge Technology surrounds. It's not a smooth surround that suspends the speaker, it's actually got ridges in it, and what that does is allow them to have a longer excursion and more linear performance. So that just really helps your bass performance and lower distortion in those bass frequencies. So in talking about the drivers, the surrounds are certainly a cool piece of tech, but what really makes this Persona line of speakers shine and stand out above almost all other speakers that are out there is the use of beryllium. A lot of speaker manufacturers use beryllium in tweeters. That's not uncommon. It's a great material. But what is uncommon, and Paradigm, as far as I know, may be the only ones doing this, is to make a 7-inch beryllium mid-range. These aren't just beryllium coating on a substrate, these are actually pure beryllium foil drivers. And that's where I mentioned that Paradigm doesn't actually make these drivers. They are made for Paradigm. That's because beryllium is very expensive, very hard to work with, and frankly poisonous if you were to breathe it in or ingest it. So even a company that makes their own drivers you know, they're gonna outsource that. But these are truly pure beryllium drivers. So what makes beryllium so cool? Well, the fact that it's expensive and poisonous, yeah, that's cool. But that has nothing to do with audio. Beryllium is one of the best materials to make speakers from because it is both incredibly light, incredibly rigid, has very great damping factor, so therefore it doesn't ring and you hear only what the speaker is meant to produce and no artifacts that are coming from the speaker. And it's very low distortion material. The speaker does not break up and cause distortions which make the sound great on our ears and that kind of thing. So they're very smooth. In fact, with my personas, every time a great song comes on and I turn it up, and then another one comes on and I turn it up, and pretty soon I find that I'm listening incredibly loud, but there's zero distortion, so it doesn't bother my ears, and sometimes my wife has to tell me to turn it down. So, you know, I find that to be a plus. So one last thing as we're talking about these drivers, and this is where the Persona B starts to separate itself from the rest of the Persona line. In the rest of the Persona line, you have tower speakers that have woofers, and Paradigm did some great things with their woofer design. They're using a differential voice coil, dual magnet structure, and we won't go into much detail about this, but suffice it to say that it gives you much more linearity in your bass response and again lowers distortion. But here in the Persona B, needed to get some more bass out of this driver, so they married that tech. So these 7-inch beryllium mid-bass drivers actually do have that dual differential voice coil and dual magnet structure. So again, that's going to help them be more linear down low and reach lower frequencies, dig lower than a speaker of this size might normally do. So let's talk about how these things sound. When you're listening to these things, you're really getting the essence of the music. The speaker isn't really adding anything to it. You know, listening to female vocals or violins or things like that, there's just this air about them, and the sound comes at you in a way that's just so natural and so detailed. They're super fast, so you've got incredibly fast transients, and to me, that really lends to the realism of music. Add to that the fact that these things will dig to 60 hertz, and you've got, you know, tactile bass out of a bookshelf speaker, and that's impressive. As far as pairing these speakers with different electronics, they're going to tell you the truth. They're going to give you what you put into them. They're not a speaker that adds color, so, you know, if you have an amp that has a little brightness to it, you're gonna hear that. If you have an amp that has a little warmth, you're gonna hear that come through. They're not gonna mask any of these details. And that's something that is really special for these Persona Bs. They disappear, they get out of the way, they let you hear the music in a way that you've probably never heard before. So if you get the chance, if you're in the Atlanta area, come down to HiFi Buys and see me, Paradigm Bryan, or just Bryan, and let me show you why I fell in love with these speakers and the magic that they produce. Bring your favorite tracks, the proof is in the listening. So come on down, see us at HiFi Buys, and until then, as always, enjoy the music.